Welcome to this very special interview show. This is in honor of our friend and colleague, Brenda Churchill, who passed over unexpectedly on January 13th. We will be airing 3 of the 5 interviews that Brenda did with all things LGBTQ.
I'd like to read a memorial issued by Outright Vermont, one of our signature youth-oriented organizations here in Vermont. They say, "It is with deep sorrow and immense gratitude that we celebrate the life of Brenda Churchill. A fierce advocate, a compassionate leader, and an irreplaceable member of the community. Brenda embodied what it means to live your truth and fight like hell to ensure others could do the same. Brenda was an absolute force whenever she was cheering on LGBTQ plus youth at Leadership Day, making popcorn at a trans group, and lighting the bowl on fire, of course, because she had flair, or championing the causes she believed in. Her energy and tenacity were impossible to ignore. And thank goodness for that. Her refusal to be sidelined was a gift to us all, a glittery example of what it means to take up space with kindness, purpose, and intention. As a trans elder, Brenda held a rare and precious role in our community. She ensured that trans voices were heard, trans lives were valued, and trans joy was celebrated. She had a knack for being in the room where it happened, and there wasn't a room yet. And if there wasn't a room yet, well, she'd reserve one and call a new meeting to order. From facilitating trans groups and supporting the early days of Friday Night Group in Morrisville, to acting as the State House liaison for the LGBTQIA Alliance of Vermont, Brenda built connections and laid the groundwork for so much of what sustains us today. Her impact will continue for generations to come. May we all carry forth warm memories of her courage, commitment, and tenacity. It's what made her unforgettable."
Rest in peace, Brenda. Long may you run, and we're going to all miss you very, very much. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. I know you're a friend of ours. You've been on before. And so welcome to the show again. And Brenda Churchill is running for District Franklin 6. And could you tell us what area that's in so people will know?
Sure. It's the southeast corner of Franklin County. I call it delightfully the BFF, which is Bakersfield, Fairfield, and Fletcher. It's largely rural, a lot of dirt roads, and a great farming community overall.
And when you ran, did you think, oh, this is going to be a breeze, or were you really worried about whether you would get elected? And now you are the Democratic candidate from that area?
I am. I didn't have an opponent in the Democratic primary, so that made it a little easier to not have to spend a huge amount of time worrying about whether I'd get a primary vote. My only opponent is the incumbent representative, and he won last time because he had no opponents at all. So we're going to put up a little bit of a fight on this one, and I'm hoping to carry the district in November.
And how has your response been in your neighborhood? Do you have a lot?
I would have to say, yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I'd have to say that there's been a lot of support in Bakersfield. Even Republicans have told me they're voting for me. My neighbor, who's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, said, "I voted for you in the primary. I'm going to vote for you in the election." And he said, "I want you to carry a honest message into Montpelier." So I figured that was a mandate from my neighbor, which made me feel really good. I did do well in the primary because, which is not a primary, but kind of like a straw vote. And a lot of Democrats did turn out in Bakersfield, and I got some write-ins from Republicans, which was surprising. So I'm pleased to say that I get to represent the Democratic Party in November. So, but yeah, it's been good so far.
And what about your opponent? Are your values kind of really, I mean, you know, what are you bringing to this that he hasn't or
Thanks. That's that too.
didn't have?
Yeah. One of the things that my opponent has done is voted pretty much in lockstep with Governor Scott. So he voted and was with all the vetoes that the governor wrote. The most important one that he voted against was a woman's right to choose, what was an amendment number 5, but now it's Article 22. He voted against it 3 times, and then in the last one, he might have realized that he was headed to trouble because he abstained from the vote, and I think that's the same as voting no. He didn't. He chose not to vote at all. So I'm kind of glad that he did that, because I think it's easy to talk about the issues. Another one is the bottle bill. As a merchant, he voted against it. And with all due respect, I think most people would rather have clean highways and pay a nickel on an initial deposit. The bottle bill contained provisions to pick up a lot of the containers that are not do not have deposits on them right now. It raised it to 10 cents to help fund it. And of course, he voted no, and it didn't pass. But I feel confident that if we have a majority in the House and the Senate, we'll be able to get that passed. So that from an environmental standpoint is very important. If there was a tax credit involved, he voted no for it. Child tax credit. My families brought a lot of people, brought their kids out of unfortunate or less funded scenario, and I think the child tax credit was an important bill. Fortunately, it did pass with a majority of the House and the Senate. So these are good things that I think I would have supported, but he did not. So basically, his voting record may be what helps me the most. I certainly have had. I'm sorry. Say again.
How are you reaching your neighbors and letting them know about your platform? Have you gone to schools, or do you knock house to house? Do you have help?
Yeah, that's also a good question. One of the things that I think I've been fairly relaxed on is getting out a lot. I've been to public functions. I've been to some ice cream socials and concerts. I did a kickoff at the Fairfield Community Center back in May, and basically been circulating among people and getting out to meetings and talking with people. I haven't been to schools yet. We have a great school district of one school. Bakersfield Elementary is the school in town, and they just started school again. So haven't been doing much with the schools. Fairfield has Fairfield Center School, and I think I'll have strong support with the teachers. I'm very supportive of education, and public education is a cornerstone for our kids and growing up, and it's really a anchor in our community. So we've got Fletcher Elementary too. So I've got three elementary schools that I'll be visiting at some point in time. Hope to have some meetings with farmers in the near future. Well, I'm gonna see if I can get a forum together where myself and the Senate candidates can go and talk to the farmers. I have some friends who worked for the state that are helping out with the farmers crowds. And I've got a couple of good allies, including some endorsements from people who are farmers. So I'm fortunate to know a lot of people. That's been a good thing for me.
Yeah. And is your opponent attacking you on any levels, or is it just, or is it a smooth kind of, let's be nice to each other kind of campaign?
I think we both adopted the let's be nice, take the high road thing. He hasn't said anything. I haven't seen anything in the press yet. I have seen some things. No, really, I haven't. I apologize. I haven't seen anything, and we're going to be positive. I got some pieces going into Front Porch Forum and social media this week. We're going to ramp up. My endorsements are many, including Christine Hallquist and the former principal of Fairfield Center School is a strong advocate for me as well. She's gone on to nursing. She left a high pressure job to go into a very, another high pressure job. So she's doing well and thriving, which is nice. I think the school has its own pressures, which it has been something that she endured and did well, and then just decided that she wanted to take off in a different direction. That's okay. I've got a farmer or two that are going to do for me. I've got a Republican that's actually going to endorse me, and I've got some community leaders, including Craig Mitchell, who said he would put out an endorsement for me, which is great. So I'm going to work on those. I'm going to try to get those out the door this week. You follow my webpage, which is votebrendaChurchill.com.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can see them there. We'll also try to make some splashy things on the other media, on social media as well. So I've got some great folks that work with me.
Any bumper stickers?
I have little 3x5 bumper stickers. I wanted unobtrusive. I wanted things that I could stick on places, and they actually stand out. I'll send you a picture if you want to use it to show my campaign sign. My campaign signs, a local artist added some color to it by putting some swoosh on the mountains in orange and yellow, and some along the ground. So they got really pretty really quick, and they're very popular. So I hope to have them out. I told people, let's put them out after Labor Day. People are really tired of looking at all the primary signs.
Yeah.
Even after the primary, I took on and I put up a couple in strategic places, so where they get a lot of traffic.
Mhm.
But we're currently offering signage in my district. If you make a $5 contribution, you'll get a sign. So it's a nice way to do it.
So Brenda, on a final note, did you wake up some morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to get into politics"? Or because I know you were an activist first, I think, and you got into, I believe, politics through activism. And so, am I right about that? Was it progressive for you, and then you thought, well, I can really do some good here in the legislature? Because I know you were, like I said, you were an activist before getting involved in the political scene. So can you tell us a little bit about that, like how you progressed to where you are now?
Yeah, the evolution of my political career is pretty interesting. I think that going back over a decade, as I got a little older, I realized that there were some important issues going on for our community. And I began work at the Pride Center, just going to different things and being part of meetings and learning about what the issues were. And then when I went to retire, I was actively looking for things to do. And I think you'll remember the meeting that I was at when we formulated the LGBTQI Alliance. And I foolishly raised my hand and said, "Keith, I'll help you." It was actually a pinnacle moment in my direction where I was headed, and it wasn't very long after that I was retired. I started going up to the State House with Keith, and activism is a blend of politics and being able to be in the right place at the right time, which I seem to have had some good luck with doing, starting first with the bathroom bill, and moving towards the third gender on driver's licenses and IDs. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I testified for a lot of bills across a lot of different issues, minimum wage being a strong one, healthcare being another. We got kind of paused a little bit when I worked with Christine Hallquist to try to make her governor of the state of Vermont. And boy, oh boy, did that give me a crash course in campaigning and politics. And I got to know many, many people, made a huge amount of contacts. That continued after the election was lost. In fact, that next day, I called the governor's office, and my contact there said, "So, can we get back to work now?" And it was very, very rewarding that he said, "Absolutely, let's schedule a meeting." So we got right in to see the governor, and that's, I think, one of the hallmarks of the activism and the work that Keith and I did at the State House. Was we forged alliances with House leaders, with Senate leadership, with executive leadership, different departments like the Vermont HRC, the Attorney General's office, and all these contacts remain close to me. We've been in tight communication because mostly we have Democrats running for those offices again, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So I've been very, very pleased to be part of really what's going to be a wave of Democrats taking over the State House.
I certainly hope, and across the country, I hope. I think, the abortion ban has really activated a lot of people who may not have been that interested to all of a sudden start getting interesting. At least that's my hope anyway. So
I agree. I think it's going to be a good turnout at the polls. Vermonters should know, everybody that's hearing this, that's in Vermont, you're all getting mailed ballots by the end of September. You have the opportunity to vote in less than 4 weeks. I think that's a key part of our rights and freedoms, is to vote. So regardless of who you vote for, I hope you get out and cast your ballot for your candidate of choice. But do some studying, do some diligence, and find out who your candidates are. Ask friends, ask people who are active about their stances, and it would be a good thing to have a record turnout this fall.
So Brenda Churchill, we're rooting for you. And if we could vote for you, we would. But
well, yeah.
And we're looking forward to going to the celebration party after.
It'll be big, and I'm absolutely certain that while you can't vote for me, you can contribute. Go to my webpage and read about me, and hopefully we'll be able to have enough money to fund some postcards and get out and do some more contacts. And I think I owe you guys T-shirts, isn't that right?
Yes, but we can wait. But we'll wear them on the show when we get them.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So Brenda, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your activism and your hard work and diligence. And you've been a great friend and person working for all of us for a long time. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And thanks to you and Keith and Ann as well. It's been great knowing you, and you're strong advocates, and you keep people informed. I think that's a really important part of our community, because people are taking information in so many different ways, but going on and looking at your podcast and your online presence, phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. So thank you for what you guys do as well.
So this is the beginning of our election year, and people are stepping forward to announce their candidacy for both House and Senate seats here in Vermont. And there is a candidate who has announced recently their intention to represent Franklin 6, and you just saw her briefly on the screen. Please welcome back to All Things LGBTQ, Brenda Churchill.
Thanks, Keith. It's nice to be here.
So I want to start with, how is it that you came to Vermont and live in the district for which you are now running for a House seat?
Thanks, Keith. I moved up here over 30 years ago from Central New York. One of my best friends from college had started a machining and manufacturing business in St. Albans, and I came up here to assist and drive some sales through their door, and eventually what was a very successful machining and manufacturing business. So my experience with machining and manufacturing from Syracuse and my knowledge of the area became very important to soliciting new clients. We had clients that ranged from Stowe Mountain Resort to other manufacturing businesses in the area, including Biotech and Yankee Tool. And we just kept expanding on that. It was a good relationship. I had a lot of fun doing it, and it got me to Vermont.
And I understand that you also had a career with Fairpoint Communications, and you were involved in some of the organizing efforts within Fairpoint. Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I took on the role as a steward way back when it was let's see. We had so many iterations of the phone company, and I think it was during the just prior to Bell Atlantic taking over or being renamed, and I became a steward and represented our workforce in disputes with contracts, management and personnel conflicts, and also in contract negotiations on the local level. So it was a very interesting sideline to what was a pretty demanding customer service job.
So once you're here in Vermont, when did you start becoming involved in political advocacy here?
That's a good question. I think I managed my career without getting entangled in local or regional politics. And it wasn't until I got involved with the Pride Center in Burlington, Vermont. I looked at some of the things that were going on around the community, and it was just kind of a natural fit to advocate for the LGBTQ community and to speak out on some of the issues. It wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 years before I retired that I became very active within that community, and it was, as they say, all downhill from there.
So as an extension of your advocacy with the Pride Center of Vermont, you became involved with the LGBTQIA Alliance of Vermont, which was a new advocacy group that was founded in 2017. And you became part of the liaison team, which meant that you would be advocating in the legislature and within state government infrastructure. What was attractive about that position and that process for you?
Well, I'd say working with you is one of the incentives, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that there were things that needed to get done. And part of it was, and I think the group recognized quite clearly and early, that we had a change in our federal administration. We had something happen that we didn't think was going to happen, but it did. And we already had been telegraphed how many things were going to change and what the ramifications were of having somebody who may not be LGBTQ friendly in the White House. And with that, I think we approached the legislature at that point with the eye on watching for things to deteriorate. And in fact, you and I worked very diligently to make sure language and things were proper in the legislature. Before we even became involved in issues, we were watching what laws were being passed and making sure that they were inclusive and they had inclusive language. So we started off slow, and then I got into some really groundbreaking legislation, and I was happy to be part of that.
So from being involved, advocating with the legislation and working with state government, you also started increasing your involvement in local and community politics. Could you share a bit about what it is that you've been doing in your own backyard and what the response of the community has been?
Thanks, Keith. That's interesting, and I'm just going to backtrack a little bit because during my involvement with the LGBTQ Alliance, there's a gubernatorial race that I became very involved in. It was 2018, and part of that was because of my knowledge of the community and that the candidate was the first nationally recognized national party recognized candidate for a state government, and she was transgender, Christine Hallquist. So I was very fortunate to be right place, right time to move her along. Well, that kind of devolved after the election and went right back into what we had been doing in the State House. But then I also reflected a little bit more on, well, I'm doing this here. Why am I not doing it in my backyard? Why am I not taking care of business around town? And it led eventually, of course, to me running for select board. I lost my first election there, but I did get elected as a justice of the peace. Part of it is taking the knowledge that I gained in Montpelier and bringing it down to a local level and implementing some of the things that I had heard people were looking for in my town. Basically, they were looking for transparency and better communications with town government. And I began attending the select board meetings and trying to understand the processes that were there.
So what were some of the things that came before the select board for which you had a unique perspective, or what were some of the things that were unexpected for you?
No, that's a good question. I think that the things that were in my my wheelhouse, so to speak, were telecommunications and things that had to do with the land. I gained a forestry degree back in college many years ago. And from an application standpoint, if you haven't noticed, Vermont is mostly trees and dirt roads. And one of the things that, yeah, there you go. And one of the things that I recognized was property is valued in several ways. Part of it is whether it was agriculturally viable or whether it had forest land on it. And of course, in Bakersfield, maple syrup is a huge product. Sap from the trees is something that traditionally has been one of the off-season farm events. I'd have to say it's now full-blown supporting a lot of our local economy with both the labor and the processing of maple syrup. So part of it is understanding that global warming is affecting our trees and our ability to have our maples to be healthy, but also that it affects the community in earnings and seasons that are slow for sap may or may not be in our future, but right now managing their crops of maple trees is very important. It's something that I brought from my educational background. Also, when I was looking around and I saw the number of trees lining our roads that had been planted decades ago, and some of them were dying, we need to replace them. We need to have progressively work towards managing our own trees along our roadways and things of that nature. So it was kind of interesting to apply that. besides myself, there's two other people who are graduates from forestry colleges on the select board. So it was nice to have a meeting or a merging of the minds, so to speak, because we kind of all have the same background, but different in personalities. So I enjoyed getting to know.
Now, building off your role as a select board member, you're also your community's zoning administrator, and you've been involved in the regional effort to expand broadband. So could you talk a little bit about those two roles?
Sure. And the interesting part was they both happened almost simultaneously with regard to the Northwest Fiberworks, which is, of course, the Northwest Communications Union District, as well as taking on zoning responsibilities. That's kind of a default job. Had I not picked that work up, it would have fallen on the select board. Nobody really wanted to take that work up. So I said, hey, I can do this work. I can learn the work. And it's been an educational roller coaster going through both the state regulations and, of course, the local regulations, understanding what and who is responsible for permits and zoning. And a lot of it has been seat of the pants learning, because I have a wonderful town clerk. The institutional knowledge that she has, it's going to be gone when she leaves. And I find that folks who have been in town government for a long time, that's what happens, is they have nobody to carry it on or carry it on to. So I've been getting as much of an education from her as I ever did in college, which is kind of great. And the Northwest Fiberworks actually was an extension of me on the select board, because they needed an extra representative for the town. Each town's supposed to have 2 representatives, and I just got volunteered into that position. And as it worked out, I knew a lot of the players in that, with Christine Hallquist, of course, being the chief executive for the Vermont Broadband Community Coalition, VBCC. And, so it was kind of fun to get back and visit things with her. Also, from a telecommunications standpoint, having worked for the phone company for over 20 years, and in telecommunications almost 30, I have a broad bit of knowledge. A lot of it is customer service, but you can't not be in the phone company and not understand infrastructure and how things work, because you have to explain that to people. So it's a natural role to be on there. Right now, I'm the chair of one of the subcommittees from the planning organization. And we aren't that busy yet, but we have material ordered. We have we have plans being made. We have poles being inventoried. So there's a lot of groundwork yet to do before the first fiber line goes up. But I like it. It's challenging and it's diverse. And we have a lot of towns in Franklin County right now. They're looking forward to this implementation. It's going to be good.
So what makes Brenda Churchill the ideal candidate to represent Franklin 6? And what are the key components of your campaign that reflect the needs of your community?
That's a great question, Keith. I think that this all combines to make me a very knowledgeable and understanding candidate, both from how the State House works and how local things dovetail or fit in with the government, whether it's local or state government. I think my background in telecommunications, regarding customers that really need this product, low, what do I want to say? We have areas that are underserved, and the kids need to have internet to be able to go to school. We just came through a pandemic where many kids are feeling like they're behind, and their parents say they're behind because they didn't have a good way to complete their school years. We're coming out of the 3rd school year of COVID protections, and I think understanding that the relationship between education, families, and internet is actually more important now than it ever was. Also, a lot of people chose to do business from home and work from home. My neighbor, she works from home and she couldn't be happier, except that she now works where she lives and lives where she works. So it's a little stressful for her, but take that part of it and the fact that I did work in customer service so much, I don't mind talking to people. In fact, I engage people all the time. One of the things that doesn't show up really brightly on my resume is the time I spent teaching skiing, and teaching all levels of skiing to adults and kids. If you want to get good at talking to people, teach people, talk to them, be interactive and make sure you understand what their needs are, see what their needs are, and then implement a plan to get them to improve. I think that's applicable to any part of government. Understanding what your student needs, or in this case, your constituents, is primary to being able to make a plan and move forward. I think that experience, plus my customer service experience and the telecom experience, and now local government, both in the zoning and the implementation of those zoning laws, plus select board issues in town. One of the surprises I think you wanted me to highlight was how intricate our physical network is with regard to roads. And who knew that roads would be one of the hottest topics here, along with ATVs and ATV traffic. And that totally surprised me. As an avid off-road enthusiast, because I got my Jeeps, I certainly want to preserve both my neighborhood, my neighbors' security and privacy, and also meet the needs of recreation. Without recreation, why do you live if you don't get to go skiing or ride your ATV? These are two sports that are critical to tourism in Vermont. So I think when you look at income, revenue, peace of mind, peace and quiet around your home, there's a lot to do here. Make sure that we ensure that.
And with that, I need to say thank you and good luck on becoming the next representative from Franklin 6.
But you probably know it's not luck, but hard work. So I'm fortunate to have a good team. And I thank you, Keith, for the opportunity to talk to all my communities, which are all very important to me. Thanks.
Hi, we're with Brenda Churchill. Hi, Brenda, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
I haven't seen you in person in a long time. This is really hard, isn't it?
It's one of the harder things I have to do is Zoom meetings and not see people.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about your running for the two offices you're running for, which are?
Select Board for Bakersfield and Justice of the Peace for Bakersfield.
Okay. And when did you first get interested in politics? Was it something you were always interested in, or something that came to you as you got older?
I remember running for sixth grade president of my elementary school and winning I lost to Steve LaFleur, but I was able to be the vice president of whatever student council we had at that point in time. So part of it was, I believe, we had a civics project and I got to go run town government for a day, which was kind of fun. Living in a suburb of a large city. They did those sort of things back then, and it was good.
So you kind of always had an interest.
Oh, definitely. I mean, besides voting, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
More than a casual interest.
And what is Emerge? I know that you're involved in Emerge, and I know it has to do with funding women running for office. But would you like to tell our audience what Emerge actually is, and did it help you, and was it effective?
Thanks. Yeah, Emerge recruits and trains and provides a powerful network to Democratic women who want to run for office. basically, we give them the training and the skills to run for any office, from statewide office right down to select board and justice of the peace. So I've gotten some good coaching from my peers, and we remain as a network that helps candidates. I'm currently involved with 3 other women's campaigns, and going back and refreshing myself on what I'm doing to campaign as well. A little different when you're running for a very local office than it is for a statewide office, but we have emerged candidates all over the place this year. It's pretty exciting. It definitely helps. And what else was your asking?
Well, did you find it effective? Did it help you? Did it give you like some ideas about how to run this campaign?
We'll see if I get elected. But
And who's running against you? Anybody? Is there a Republican running?
no, there's, well, I don't know. They haven't really aligned it by party yet, but there are 2 folks that are running against me. One is a longtime Bakersfield resident. All her life she's been here. And the other one is a recently graduated college student who also has been in Bakersfield all their lives. So I've been here longer than the younger one has, but not as long as the older one has.
And how do you think like being transgender is going to affect this campaign positively or negatively?
Well, much like the way Christine ran her campaign, there's nothing about gender that is respectful to mention or to be. I don't even know folks other than my fellow Democrats that I'm part of in Bakersfield know much about me or know much history about me. I mean, if they Googled me, they'd find out all the stuff they wanted to. But I would have to say it doesn't have any effect other than the select board, like many select boards in old Vermont, I'll say, are all white guys, all older white men, and have been part of that political dynamic for decades, at least since the decades I've been here. I don't believe there's been any woman on select board. So now there's 3 running, so one of us has a chance of getting on.
And what county is it? Are you in?
I'm in Franklin County. My county chair, David Glidden, awesome chairman, very, very supportive. He's also running for office. I don't know if you knew that. But David and I worked on Christine's campaign together. David did communications and I was a outreach director. I'm being well supported in town. We had a meeting for the Justice of the Peace in town Democrats, and we got 7 slots and we got 7 people running. So I'm pretty sure I'll at least get elected to that one in November. But the August one, which is the primary date for the state, is also the date to select openings, chosen as a date to select openings on select board vacancies, which is what I'm doing. I'm gonna have to turn around and run no matter what I do in 7 months again for select board. And hopefully I'll have that slot secure. If not, I'll be running, I'll literally be running again right after I get elected for select board.
And one won't affect the other, right? I mean, you could do both.
I actually sent a letter to the Secretary of State yesterday, and they got right back to me and they said, no conflict at all. And they cited they actually cited the statute that was effective for that. I know that I can't count any votes that my name is on. And if you haven't voted yet, I really recommend it. You can vote early in Vermont, and you should go to the Secretary of State website and request a ballot, or through your town clerk.
I wish I was in the county you were running, because you'd have my vote.
You'd have to live in Bakersfield specifically. The county-wide office, I haven't run for a county-wide office. I don't know if that's in the plans or not, but I thought that having done all I had at the state level over the past few years with the Alliance, LGBTQI Alliance of Vermont, that it was time to get in touch with my roots, so to speak. And this was a good way to do it. The first meeting I went to, we talked about sugar bushes and ATV traffic, and those are two things that are near and dear to my heart. So I was able to be involved the first meeting that I went to. So.
And I know you were helping Christine Hallquist when she ran for governor of Vermont. That must have given you a lot of experience about how to run, what to do, what not to do. And how did working for her help you now, do you think, or does it have any relevance to what you're doing now? And is this a stepping stone for you?
Those are all great questions. I think the difference in a statewide race compared with a very, very local race is immense. There is some relevance in that, getting your message out, talking to people, understanding what the issues are. These are all, common to anybody campaign. One of the things that I like to think I know what's going on, particularly with roads, is because I drive them all the time. So roads are a really big issue in any town. ATV traffic has recently come into focus. I mean, these weren't things that were part of a gubernatorial campaign with Christine, but yet they are something that affects local people, town people, and having that global picture sometimes is helpful. I don't know if it's as helpful in a small town race.
Like, what about in your area? Are there problems with computer connections and things like that? Is that something that that your local city government would be trying to work, or at least access for people who live in that area? Is that a concern for your area?
Yeah, telecommunications in any rural area in Vermont is at best poor and at worst non-existent, and we have that here. There's legacy phone lines in most cases, which will bring some speeds of computer usage into the house. That's what we're talking on now, is old copper wire. As you probably remember, I'm from a telecom background, that I worked
Right.
for several different phone companies during my time in the workforce. And rural telecommunications has always been at the forefront of local, county, statewide politics, because nobody's been able to fix it or figure it out. And it's really a pretty simple formula. Throw a lot of money at it and we'll have it fixed.
Yeah. I know, and I guess part of the problem is that, like, Comcast doesn't really want to, or some of the big places don't want to bother with rural areas because there's no money in it for them.
That's correct.
So we almost need some state kind of company or something that would.
We already had, back when telephone went in, mandates and government funding that helped build the network. You taxpayers, us taxpayers, built the current copper pair wires that we've got now. What they did was the government didn't retain control of it, but allowed private companies, starting with AT&T, to take over the local networks, and then of course the small companies as well. In this area, it was New England Telephone, which took possession of the wires and ran the network. And
Right.
What people don't realize is that it became no longer tax subsidized. Once the network was built, much like rural electrification, once the network was built, private companies needed to step up and take over. And the model within the context of maintenance and everything is where your fees and costs come from. Now, what of course hasn't happened was enough fees or money weren't allocated to upgrading networks to fiber optic. Everybody knows what fiber optic is. Everybody knows what cable is. All of these infrastructure improvements came in larger metropolitan areas. The trickle down into the country didn't happen until they figured out some sort of technology that made it work. Right now, I got fiber out to about a mile down the road, and from that last mile to my house is where the copper takes over. So that's that's a limiting factor anyway. So I'm not going to get in the weeds on this because
Yeah,
it's too easy.
yeah,
It's too
I
easy.
get it. But you know, it's a concern, I think, for local governments in this time of coronavirus, you know, whether to go to school or not go to school. I mean, whether kids can even do online. I mean, there's probably a large part of the community that you're in that probably can't even do school online. So, you know, that would be a concern for local governments, I would think also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some municipalities have solved that by going with their own broadcast Wi-Fi. Cambridge did that a few years ago. A good friend of ours, Justin Marsh, was instrumental in getting Cambridge and Jeffersonville lit up on their own network, but that required somebody to still work at it and be on it. And because there was no paid position for that, the whole system fell apart and is no longer working. That
Right.
requires money. What don't people
Yeah,
want to pay for telecommunications?
I know. Well, we have a few more minutes, so I would, do you have any last words for our audience?
No,
I know
thanks.
you can't go to door and like knock on people's door and say, hey, I'm Brenda, and you know,
I'm
but
using a megaphone in my Jeep, just so you know.
maybe we can all come up with cars and put banners around and drive up and down and beat the horn.
That would be good. Even a paper plate with my name on it would be fine.
Yeah, fling them up. So is there any last words you would like to tell the audience about your candidacy and who you are? And
Well, as you know, as a third-time person on your show, and I want to just
yes,
note that I've really enjoyed working within the community, but now I have the opportunity to work with another community, which is my rural Bakersfield community. And there's a bunch of diversity here. There's folks who have been in politics for a long time. You probably know my friend Ewan Bear. She's been a fixture in Bakersfield for decades, and she's a strong member of the lesbian community. And
yes,
she's led my campaign and told people about me and rallied around me. And this next, well, we got the 11th, so we got about 10, 11 days left. I'm just going to start reaching out throughout the community in other ways that I can. I'm going to go to one of the days when they recycle trash and stand there with a sign and talk to people. There's a ton of people that are going to come do their trash and recycling, and I get to say hi. And that's
yeah,
it's all on public property. So I think that may gain me a lot of the walk-in votes that come in. I'll put a little bit of signage up the day of the election. But for the most part, it's literally word of mouth. It's people who know me getting the word out for me and continuing to.
well, we'll do our best on all things LGBTQ to spread the word. So Brenda Churchill, I hope you win. We're all rooting for you here. We love you. Take care. And we'll talk to you soon.
I hope so. I'll talk to you about the election later if you want.
Great. That would be fabulous. Bye, Brenda.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. And until next time, remember, resist.